Okay, Wayne D here again, and I hope you're checking out the club side of the website. We're dedicated to helping the games of the serious players. Today we're going to look at Angel Cabrera. Let's love this golf swing. As you'll see, he does not really follow the rules, but it's the way it works. You'll see some of the things that crop up in all good players. And then again, when you see some of the rule-breaking things that he does, you see maybe why he's a little bit on the erratic side. Still has won 2 majors and was playing real nicely in the Masters. Didn't quite pull it off, but was right in there. I want to show you one thing that I do here. When I first view a video, I'm gonna draw just to check out the camera movement. I'm gonna find a line. Here's a tree, and then there's a rope. So when I play the video, what I'll do is I'll see how much movement is there. So you can see that laterally this is going to be a pretty good picture. Less than maybe an inch of movement. If you look at the vertical side, though, you'll see how the camera is actually moving down, right? So we know if I put a line on top of his head, it's not going to be accurate. But this will help us. It always helps you, note what you can look at and measure and what you can't. So if we look at the this was from the Masters. This picture on the right's a little older. If you look at the one from the Masters, the camera is perfectly still once the cameraman stops zooming. So luckily he stopped zooming right before he took it back. So now we've got a nice swing here. So if we just look at it a couple of times, I know I get the comment a couple of times that I don't play the swings enough at regular speed. So I'll do that. Start doing that more at the beginning of the video so you get an idea of the tempo. There was a clip in the Masters where Costas had Cabrera and McIlroy, and he made the comment that Cabrera had a homemade swing, whatever that is. I don't know, I guess it's like home cooking or something, but and then he noted, how free-flowing it is, which is correct, and how he likes to rip it, and he really does like to kill it. It just seems that way because he's so big, and he puts such a nice strike on it. He also made the comment right after that Rory McIlroy had the greatest arm freedom of any player since Jack Nicklaus. I don't know where he comes up with this that kind of stuff, but I thought that was pretty humorous. Of course, then he said that Rory's a little tense today. Oh, but he hit a good drive, so that was freer. Anyway, I digress because this is Cabrera. So let's take a look. I've got some of the lines here that I always draw, and we can check them out. If we look at the front view first, there's just a huge amount of lateral movement, relative to what most guys are doing these days, which is staying more stable. Now, interestingly enough, you don't really see his right foot roll over. He just likes to slide and then return. Great sequence there. Look at the muscles in his back. So it's always cool to note, and I've been focusing on this more and more lately, about how the upper right shoulder continues to move backwards as the lower body starts forward. So you see almost that the right side is flowing in this direction and the hip is flowing in that direction, which means you're actually in 2 directions at once, because when the right hip begins to move forward laterally, it means that the upper's going backwards and the lower's going forward. Now, in my opinion, that's from the ground, and you can see the tremendous build up and wind in the upper left side as the sequence catches in the hips and then works up into the upper back. So if you look at the amount of negative movement, out of the box here in the backswing, and then you look at the amount of movement in the positive direction. Look at the total amount of lateral movement. You will not see that much lateral movement in anybody. Anybody on the tour. That's the most, from the top of the swing transition to get to there. And that's just a huge amount. And what it does is it puts a tremendous amount of drag on the club. So he's one of the few guys that's going to strike his driver with a tremendous amount of angle built into his right hand. So, but that produces a long sustain through the ball, which again is not normally what you see in a driver swing. It's actually more like what the guys used to do way back when the balls were balata, and you were sort of better off hitting bullets rather than spinning the thing up in the air when you had persimmon. So that's pretty notable. There's definitely a use of the ground, even though that vertical line's not going to work. I'll show you on the other side. He's definitely compressing and driving. He's got great squat in his legs. But notice that the lower right leg is always driving and moving immediately. It's not just sitting there. So very cool swing. So now it's really interesting to look at it from the back. So in this case, it's on number 7, I believe. It's a long hole, but it's pretty tight. He's cutting this ball. You can see his foot line is pretty well left. The ball starts off a little right of his foot line. So you can pretty much guess that he has the club face sort of in between his feet and the eventual target, which is out here, and then the ball can start off and cut, which is kind of the TrackMan, the new TrackMan deal. So let's take a look here. Takeaway definitely is, because he's cutting this ball, is going to be up above the original shaft plane. That's to be expected, but he does keep the club outside his hands a fair amount. Now when it gets up into the middle range, you'll note that the shaft begins to get a lot more vertical. And now it's really cool here how open the face gets with that vertical arm and that left wrist being a little cupped. You see in the leg movement, I really like that deep right leg and that symmetrical leg movement, where you see pretty close to the same exact amount of removal of the right and the forwardness of the left. So that gets the butt back there fairly deep. So you can see the whole right thigh move well back, but the knee stays flexed. The knee is not straight now, so he's definitely retained that. So you can see the head hasn't lowered a tremendous amount. He's already sort of bent over quite a bit, but it's still there. So he still does it. Now, so from way up here, take a look at the right arm position now. That's really severely bent, and the forearm that's a ton of angle there. You don't see that much either in most players on the tour, but watch the great action of the right arm and the right leg. So watch the forearm adjust and tip down. So if we look at the grip movement from way up there, now remember he's past parallel, so I'd say he's parallel now about here. So this first action is just him getting the club back to parallel. The right arm's tipping in, and from right about here, if I dot the handle right there, now we mark the movement of the grip. So if I draw, say, a different colored line there, whoops, you can see that the handle has definitely been moving out toward the ball. So what that does is that brings the elbow from where it is here. Draw a little circle where the elbow is. And let's watch the movement of the elbow. There it goes to here. And then here. So now you can see that the elbow movement is down in front of his feet, almost on the exact same angle. Now what that does is that positions his upper right arm to get in front of his hip. That gives him the clearance. And if you watch his leg movement, watch that right leg, watch it stay in the box. See, that's inward twisting and driving. Now I showed you over here how much lateral movement that is, right there. So as you look at these two views and you watch the right leg movement, you can see that this driving movement over here is definitely moving back to the left, and it's twisting in. So there's that's a great thing for you to note and practice. So as I kind of mentioned in a couple times, where what do you do to enable your right arm to get in front of you? You have to drive the right leg over to the left and twist it so it stays inside of the box. So if I get rid of this, sometimes I get too many lines in there. But anyway, we go back to the beginning here. And what I'll do with students who have a tendency to come out from under themselves is I'll put a stick in the ground just in front of the knee line and encourage them to drive inside of it. And also note on this side that if I put the stick here, now you got to remember this is going to be in front of the knee line. Watch where the right leg goes now. It goes right past it. Alright, so what that does is that gives you an aim point for the driving action of your legs, and that would be this direction. Now, let's take a look at the approach angle here, because as I always note in my videos, I'm kind of a proponent of a shaft plane approach. Well, this isn't even going to be close. First of all, it's a fairly low hand position to start with, but anytime you get a right arm that's this bent up here, I mean that's really bent. In order to get the arm back in front of the body, there's going to be no time to straighten it out as well as bring it in front. Also, the club is pretty far back there. So what happens is he gets his upper right arm clear inside of his hip there, but the forearm is aiming way up. So here we have an approach into impact where the shaft is going to be about 7 or 8 degrees above the original. And that makes, if you watch the left wrist, take a look at the angle of the wrist. And this is kind of what I always talk about as far as complication and release action. When the left wrist has to bow down as well as rotate the face into the ball, that to me is fairly complicated and difficult to manage. Certainly it's not unmanageable, because a lot of great players have done it, but I've never really thought it lended itself to consistency. If we go to a different swing here, just wanted to show you some similar right arm action, but from a far less bent position. If you look at Hogan and you look at the way the grip moves and the way the elbow moves, he's doing the same thing, but if you look at Cabrera's position up here, the big difference is in how bent the arm is at the top. So Hogan, by virtue of keeping the bend at about 90 degrees, is able to unbend unbend the arm to where the forearm can look much more down toward the ball, whereas Cabrera is going to come in with the forearm way high. Now, question would be for a teaching pro, what would you do with that? Well, it's a pretty good chance that you wouldn't mess with it, because the mechanism is it works together so well, and it would be such a huge change to fix or to try to change that it probably wouldn't be worth it. So here's a guy who, if you were teaching him, you'd probably just, work on tempo or something innocuous. And if you really started not to hit it good, you just have to sort of wait until he hit it better. Alright. So anyway, that's Cabrera. Great looking swing. Free. It'd be nice to have. If you look at Hogan, you just see that flow. That's what great players have.